Okay, let's dive right into this explainer and unpack the really fascinating claims made in a recent pitch for an off-grid energy guide. We're looking at source material today that tackles a frustration pretty much all of us share, right? The dreaded monthly electricity bill. But instead of just accepting those rising costs as some inevitable fact of life, this text actually presents a radical reimagining of our whole relationship with power companies.
Are you paying for a system designed to keep you in debt? I mean, wow. The author hooks their audience right out of the gate with that powerful question. The core argument here is that your climbing electricity bills aren't just a byproduct of inflation or, leaving the lights on too long. They argue it's a deliberate financial trap. By asking this, the pitch immediately taps right into our shared financial frustrations and perfectly sets the stage for a dramatic alternative.
So let's look at the first big theme here, the modern power trap versus the 1950s secret.
The text's core philosophy contrasts two very different eras. On one side, we've got our modern reality, right? Total grid reliance. We've basically been conditioned to just plug things into the wall and blindly pay whatever the corporate grids demand. But on the other side, the author presents the 1950s. They describe it as this era of true self-sufficiency, where everyday people actually knew how to manage, buffer, and store their own power. It's really a compelling narrative about lost foundational knowledge.
And the pitch claims to resurrect these old-world concepts. The quote here says, "I found this method in an old 1950s electrical handbook, a way to lower your reliance on the grid that companies have been trying to bury for decades." What's super vital to note here is their explicit disclaimer. They are absolutely not pitching expensive solar panel arrays or telling you to hunt down government subsidies. Nope, the author insists this relies entirely on basic, forgotten physics that utility companies actively want to keep hidden from us.
So how do we actually do this? Well, the author outlines a specific three-step methodology designed to cut your bill down to almost zero. We've got step 1, the load audit. Step 2, the 1950s buffer. And step 3, the efficiency hack. I love this approach because it takes this seemingly impossible, overwhelming goal and makes it look completely systematic and achievable.
Let's break those down. Step 1, the load audit. This first step is all about a deep dive into household discovery. The text claims most of us have absolutely no idea where our home's power is actually leaking. So the crucial first action is identifying what they call vampire appliances. And hey, luckily, we aren't talking about anything needing garlic or a wooden stake here. These are just everyday modern devices. Think of the microwave clock waiting eternally for a Hot Pocket, or your TV sitting there on standby. They secretly and continuously drain power totally unnoticed. Neutralizing them is framed as the literal first step to stopping that unseen financial bleed.
Moving on to step 2, the 1950s buffer. According to the guide, this step uses basic, readily available hardware. They talk about utilizing simple electrical capacitors and employing manual switching techniques to manage power flow. The really fascinating trade-off here is that it actively rejects modern conveniences. The argument is that contemporary homes abandon these highly efficient manual methods, where you physically sever a circuit with a hard switch, purely for the sake of smart home automation. Basically, by trading direct control for the convenience of standby mode, we've sacrificed raw electrical efficiency.
And finally, we have step 3, the efficiency hack.
This final step claims you can optimize your home's thermal load, which is basically doing the heavy lifting of heating and cooling using simple, non-electric methods. Now, if you're sitting there wondering what exactly those specific non-electric methods are, well, that omission is completely by design. The source text strategically keeps the exact mechanics vague. It's presented as actionable enough to sound scientifically grounded, but mysterious enough to build some really intense curiosity.
Which brings us to our next section, the illusion of impossible. Addressing the elephant in the room, the author posits this idea right here. A home that manages its own power is a home they can't control. This worldview suggests that the entire structure of our modern power grid fundamentally relies on your continuous, unrelenting consumption. By framing energy self-sufficiency as a direct threat to corporate control, it elevates this whole pitch. It goes from being just a simple cost-saving guidebook into this quiet rebellion against the systemic monopoly. The author argues that this need for corporate control is exactly why this stuff isn't taught in schools or reported on the evening news. The grid needs consumers to stay dependent. But to prove this isn't just some wild theory, the source text points to specific communities in the American Midwest. The author claims these folks have quietly lived exactly this way for years, offering them up as living, breathing proof that off-grid living using localized, old-school methods is absolutely a possible reality today. Of course, to get the actual specifics on those Midwest methods, the real circuit diagrams, and those absolutely vital safety protocols, the source text ultimately funnels the audience toward a clear destination, their full step-by-step documentation. This is really where the pitch culminates, right? Promising all the missing pieces for anyone who's finally ready to stop handing their paycheck over to the utility company.
As we wrap up this explainer, I'll leave you with the author's final provocative thought. Is off-grid independence truly impossible, or is that just what they want you to believe? Whether you view this source material as a brilliant reclamation of lost physics, or simply a clever marketing funnel built on nostalgia and financial frustration, it definitely forces us to rethink the nature of our reliance on the modern power grid. Keep questioning the systems around you, and thanks so much for joining me for this breakdown.